Hello, and welcome to another story time brought to you by ABC Read and ABC Learn, in which we are here to help you develop and nurture that love of reading in every child as well as every adult. How are you all doing out there today? Are you all feeling just like splendorific tabulous? Remember I said that? Remember I talked about how when you are reading a lot, you building up that vocabulary bank that you can play around with those words and put some words together and make up your own stuff. All right? Yes, you could do that sometimes. You could play with that language, all right? That's what's up. And I hope that everybody is feeling just fabulous around the globe, all right? And I hope that you all have read or you're planning to read for at least 30 minutes, y'all. 30 minutes. That's at least. That doesn't mean you get to 30 and then you just say, okay, I've done it. You can read more, but just get that 30 minutes in, all right? Please do that. And before we get started with our read aloud, and I am so excited to read this book to you all. Oh my, y'all know how I feel when I get these new books, right? I just get so excited, all right? And so here, let me share with you all the quote that I'm going to that is very important that I got from Walter Dean Myers. And he said this: books transmit values. They explore our common humanity. What is the message when some children are not represented in those books? All right. Yes, Walter Dean Myers, he is passed now. He was a noted African American children's author, all right? And he addressed that issue of not of a lot of black children, black and brown children around the globe, all right, who are not seeing books where they are represented in those books. All right, where they're the main characters, or where these books are dealing with issues that a lot of children of African descent have to deal with. All right. So these are things that he talked about. That's why he made that quote, because that is very important. This is one of the ways in which we can get our children into reading, in particular our black and brown children, is by having them see these books that have characters that look like them, that have issues and tackle issues that our children in the black community and in Hispanic communities are faced with. All right. So bam, that's what's up. I wanted to share that with you guys. And now let's get started. Bam! Oh, yes. That's what's up, y'all. You're talking about this sister right here. I was so ecstatic to receive this book in the mail, okay? And guess what? This book is one of the books that we are going to be giving to our local community center. That's right here in Cleveland, y'all. That's what's up. But I wanted to read it to you all first. And let's get started. Let's read the title together first. Nelson Beats the Odds. Whoa, Nelson beats the odds. And look at that. Look at that boy right there standing just so tall and proud and just looking up like he's just like, yes, I did it. All right. I love it. And then you see, you got the kids right there on the side, and you have, looks like a teacher, right? And this is written by Ronnie Sidney II. All right. And it's illustrated by Tracy Van Wagoner. Oh, wow. What do you all think this story is going to be about? Nelson beats the odds. What does that mean, beats the odds, all right? What is he talking about? He is talking about he was able to overcome something, right? There was, it was basically, he's talking about, hey, there were some things being said that he wouldn't be able to achieve or be able to accomplish. But Nelson beat those odds, right? What odds is he talking about? Well, let's find out what Nelson beats the odds is all about. You see this awesome title page? Love it, love it. Nelson was off to a rocky start at Bland Middle School. Mrs. Gronkowski, Nelson's teacher, caught him playing with his friend Carlos during class. Mrs. Gronkowski asked Nelson to move his desk to the front of the class, then to the back of the class, and eventually outside the class. No matter where Nelson moved his desk, he found someone to talk to. Nelson was in big, big trouble, and all he could hear was his mother's voice yelling, "I've had enough of your antics, young man. I'm going to call your parents. I sent you to school to learn, not to play." Nelson would often become inattentive and disinterested in class. While Mrs. Gronkowski stood at the board teaching, Nelson's mind wandered outside of the school walls into La La Land. Nelson sat and daydreamed about playing professional basketball with his buddy Anthony. When Mrs. Gronkowski asked Nelson to read what was on the board, he couldn't see it. So his father took him to see an eye doctor. When Nelson came to school the next day, he left his glasses in his book bag. "Where are your glasses?" "I forgot and left them at home." Nelson lied to Mrs. Gronkowski because he thought his classmates would tease him for wearing glasses. When Nelson went to hand in his work, Mrs. Gronkowski said, "I can't read this chicken scratch," and put a big fat red F on it. Nelson felt embarrassed and mumbles, "Maybe you need to learn how to read then." The class erupted in laughter. Mrs. Gronkowski's face turned redder than a fire truck. She screamed, "Go to the office! No!" Mrs. Gronkowski set up a meeting with Nelson's parents the next day and told them, "I suspect your son has ADHD and a learning disability. I would like to refer Nelson to our school psychologist to determine if he's eligible to receive special education services." Nelson's parents refused to put him on medication, but they thought that special education would help him reach his maximum ability. Fact: in 2011, more than 11% of children 4 to 17 years old have been diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD, by a healthcare provider. Quote, "I was diagnosed with ADHD twice. I didn't believe the first doctor who told me, and I had a whole theory that ADHD was just something they invented to make you pay for medicine. But then the second doctor told me I had it." And that quote came from Solange. She is an American born recording artist who had ADHD. "There's nothing wrong with you, baby. You just need some extra help. It's not fair. I won't be in class with my friends and everyone will think I'm slow." "You're not slow. I've always told you that you are smart. Your dad and I just want the best for you, and the school thinks this program will help." While Nelson was on the way to his special education class, Carlo asked, "Hey, Nelson, where are you going?" "I'm uh, uh, going to the bathroom." "Isn't the bathroom that way?" "I'm going to the other bathroom. See you later." Nelson sneaked to his special education class like a ninja. He didn't want anyone to know that he was in special ed because they would tease him. Although Nelson hated going to a special education class, he really liked his teacher, Mrs. T. Welcome, Nelson. Fact. In 2011, the prevalence of children 4 to 17 years of age taking ADHD medication increased from 4.8% in 2007 to 6.1%. And that came from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. Quote, not having early success on that one path messes with you. You get lumped in classes with kids with autism and Down syndrome, and you look around and say, okay, so this is where I'm at. Or you get put in the typical classes and you say, all right, I'm obviously not like these kids either. So you're kind of nowhere. You're just different. The system is broken. If we can streamline a multi-billion dollar company, we should be able to help kids who struggle the way I did. And that came from Channing Tatum, American-born actor who has ADHD. Mrs. T was there for Nelson at a time when he felt really small and needed someone to help make him feel really big. You can do it. Nelson began believing in himself and gained the confidence and skills he needed to push the boundaries, to discover his potential and grow. After 3 years in special education, Nelson's grades and organizational skills improved significantly. It was his last week in middle school, and Ms. Johnson, the high school guidance counselor, came over to help students sign up for classes. Nelson and his best friends, Tamika and Carlos, signed up for the same classes and crossed their fingers, hoping they would be in class together next year. I can't wait to get to high school and take classes with my friends. A fresh start. On Nelson's first day at Bland High School, he was thrilled to be in class with Tamika and Carlos. But moments later, the loudspeaker sounded. Nelson was called out of class. His first thought was that he was in trouble. Nelson was relieved that he wasn't in trouble, but looked suspiciously at Ms. Johnson as she handed him a new schedule. 3 special education classes? Nelson was taken out of the classes with his friends and placed back in special education. When Nelson got home, his mother saw him crying. What's wrong? Why did they put me back in special education? You said I was smart. I hate that school and I'm never going back. The next day, Nelson's parents met with Miss Johnson and said, my son came home crying yesterday and said you put him back in special education. We want our son out of those classes now. I'm so sorry. There must have been some mistake. I will take your son out of those classes immediately. But he will need to be placed in developmental algebra. After school, Nelson hung with his cousin Jeremy. Bro, I'd hate to be in those stupid classes and start acting white like Tamika and Carlos. Nelson interrupted. You sound stupid. They aren't acting white. They're acting like they want to go to college and be successful. You don't understand, Jeremy. I need those classes to get into college. Note, the fear of being accused of acting white causes a social and psychological situation which diminishes Black students' academic effort and thus leads to underachievement. Jeremy nudged Nelson and replied, "Whatever, man. I don't need to go to college because I'm going to the NFL." Nelson shook his head and said, "Come on, man. Everyone knows that you can't make it into the NFL until you graduate high school and enroll in college." "Oh, yeah?" "To college." Nelson was placed in Mr. Stevenson's developmental algebra class. Nelson became bored because the work was no longer challenging. "Mr. Stevenson sure is a know-it-all." While Mr. Stevenson had his back turned, a spitball whizzed by his head and hit the board. Splat! "Nelson, Jeremy, did either of you throw that spitball?" "No, no." Mr. Stevenson paused, shook his head. "That's why neither of you are going to college." Nelson and Jeremy looked at each other and gasped as if they had seen a ghost. They couldn't believe Mr. Stevenson would say such a thing. Nelson told himself that day that he would prove Mr. Stevenson wrong and go to college. Nelson graduated high school and decided to go to college to become a social worker. He wanted to help kids reach their full potential. Fact: African American and Hispanic students continue to be overrepresented in special education, have higher dropout rates, and are suspended and expelled at higher rates. Quote, "My teachers thought I was lazy and not very clever, and I got bored easily, thinking of all the things I could do once I left school. I couldn't always follow what was going on. And one of my last days at school, the headmaster said I would either end up in prison or become a millionaire." That was quite a startling prediction, but in some respects, he was right on both counts. Richard Branson, British-born businessman who has dyslexia. Nelson didn't have the grades to get in many universities, so he took classes at a community college. Community college helped Nelson build the confidence and skills he needed to transfer into a university. In college, Nelson studied hard and graduated at the top of his class. When he walked across the stage to receive his university degree, he looked into the packed stands and saw his family, friends, and former teachers cheering for him. Nelson finally proved Mr. Stevenson wrong. He showed him and the world that he was smart and would succeed despite being placed in special education. I stand here today because some very special people believed in me. First, I would like to thank my mom and dad for never giving up on me and supporting my dream to become a social worker. I want to thank the teachers who saw my potential and invested in me. Mrs. T, thank you for your positive energy and encouraging words. You left a lasting impression on my life and helped make my success story happen. The end. And here He is the author of this awesome book, Nelson Beats the Odds. Wow, you guys, that story right there was very, very inspirational for me. How did you all feel about that story? Did you all feel the same way? Did you understand how Nelson beat the odds and how he was placed in special education and how his parents was his biggest advocates? They supported him. And they weren't so quick to say, you know what, we are going to put our son on medication. We are going to try to help our child in other ways to help him be successful. So that right there, my friends, my reading family, this story just, really, really was awesome on so many levels. And again, I hope that you all enjoy these stories. And I hope that you guys be able to pick this book up, all right? Because this book right here, I believe, needs to be in all of our children's homes. Because we understand there are a lot of children across America who are dealing with the fact of they're struggling with their education, whether it's reading or math or different things of that nature. And so reading this book and how they gave the different statistics and quotes from many different people from different walks of life who have struggled with learning disabilities. And I'm glad that the author, Mr. Ronnie Sidney, did that. And he put that in this awesome book. So again, remember you guys, I want you all to like, subscribe, and share our videos. I just love reading to y'all. All right. And I hope that you all read for at least 30 minutes. All right. You guys take care and you have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your day. Happy reading, family.